The rebellion of Ronald Reagan and rise of the Vulcans, James Mann has lavished attention on the people and events during the period surrounding the end of the Cold War. Remember the peace dividend?
You get this period, very brief period, at the end of the 80s, the beginning of the 90s, when suddenly the Cold War is over, there is only one superpower. And the question is, and it's a preoccupying question in Washington, what do we need this huge military for?
The Cold War is over.
And you get debates in Washington about a peace dividend. What are we going to spend all this money on? And you get military leaders. There's a point at which Colin Powell, who is then military leader, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, says, I'm beginning to run out of enemies. I think I'm down to Fidel Castro and Kim Il-sung. And there is the question of a large-scale cutback in the American military role. Well, in fact, what happens is that you get new rationales and new rationalizations for a large American military.
What you're talking about seems to be central to where we are today.
Exactly.
Well, this is where the...
And where we might go from here.
This is where ideas come in. Ideas and rationalizations. Because let's take this. So the Cold War ends. It's important to know whether it ended because the United States forced the Soviet Union to collapse, or whether the Soviet Union and Gorbachev actually decided to abandon the field. But the Cold War ends, and you get this debate, should we cut the American military budget? And here, Dick Cheney, the now former Vice President Dick Cheney, plays a leading role, actually with and alongside Colin Powell and a couple of others. In the early 90s, you get a series of rationalizations why we can't cut the military budget.
As Defense Secretary.
Yeah. Cheney is now, in this period, early 90s, Defense Secretary. First, they decide that the Soviet Union might be really dangerous, not because it was powerful, but because it was weak. So, weakness might lead to some kind of military incident. Which
had been the reverse of what they had said.
This is the opposite. They've been saying the Soviet Union was, in fact, stronger than it turned out to be. Then they decided it was weaker than it turned out to be.
But we still need a lot of money.
But it was dangerous, and therefore we needed a defense budget. Then that didn't work because the Soviet Union... Yeah. Then the Soviet Union collapses, and there's kind of a, what do we come up with for a rationalization? And then they came up with, in about 92, this new rationalization that we needed an American military to preempt or any new emerging power in Europe or Asia. By that, they really meant Japan or Germany. It's hard for us to even think now, but in the early 90s, there was this fear that either Japan or reunified Germany would be a rival to the United States. Okay, then people said, well, that doesn't quite work because, among other things, Japan and Germany are our close allies.
Well, and they noticed.
Precisely. So then they came up with a new formulation, and this one was important. It was, we need an American military for any future rival, and in fact, we need a huge military, a military that's so big that any emerging rival would realize that it's crazy to try and challenge American military power. So that, if you were some unnamed leader, you would take a look at the American military and realize that it wouldn't, even if you spent 50 years on a military program, you couldn't compete with the United States.